Hi, Dave.
Hi,
This,
hi.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Is it Sadie?
I'm going to have my video off because it's not great. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I can't hear you, but I'm
Oh,
just going to turn off my video.
okay.
I'm logged in as Sadie, but it's Laura here.
Laura. My video's poor.
Hello,
Hello.
is this the meeting of the Advisory Planning and Heritage Commission for Area G, or am I in somewhere else in the ether?
No, no. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yeah, this is Dave, eh?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
you're
I
on the
can't.
phone.
Yeah, because I can never make this pardon the expression, but this fucking WebEx thing work. So I use the phone. I tried
Right on.
and it wants passwords and all kinds of shit. So I'm really, I hate this whole business. You know, I think we should meet in a meeting room, even in Nelson if we have to. I just hate this remote crap. You know,
I guess
just
it saves people a lot of gas and stuff like that, and time and travel and stuff like that, Tom, too, right? But you're right. The technology can be pretty frustrating sometimes. That's for sure.
oh, I hate this modern technology bullshit. I think it's I don't think it's an advancement or anything. I think it's a regression to some ancient time. I watch science fiction movies like Blade Runner, and that's where we're headed. We're headed for just what Blade Runner was all about. Anyways,
Yeah.
carry on. I
So,
don't know what this meeting is about. I don't understand this business of the of all these amendments to all these changes to whatever it is we're discussing tonight.
yeah. Well, I'm hoping that the staff from the RDCK will be able to enlighten us on, what exactly is going
Well,
on here.
yeah, I mean, what the hell are we talking for? The provincial government passed a law saying, telling us what to do. I mean, why? I mean, can we tell them to go screw themselves? I mean, that's what I'd like to do. They say in the end, does this commission support this? Well, I'd like to say no, we don't support it. And I have a feeling that's going to be my vote. No, I don't support it. I think it's bullshit. I mean, how much money was spent by our regional district? The people are in the most positive sense, our bureaucrats. How much time did they waste going through all that? The whole. I mean, how many pages was there? There was, forget how many. I didn't download it because
Yeah.
I didn't want to spend all the money buying another load of paper for my printer.
Oh,
You know, I mean, it's 200
Yeah.
pages or something. Or I think it's over 100 pages. I mean,
Yeah.
and they have to go through this. Did our planning department or whoever it is have to go through that line by line and well, we got to change this word and we got to change that word, and just because the idiot government we got thinks that they can solve the housing crisis by allowing people to build, you know, all kinds of. I mean,
Well, Tom, I think we should
this might
probably
apply to cities. This might apply to cities. This business of allowing
wait
people
until
to
we get
build
the staff
apartments in
on
their
board
backyard
here,
and all this. Crap,
we can find out from them what their take is on it.
well, yeah,
I
but
think
the whole thing, Dave, is it doesn't matter what my take is on it or our planning department's take on it or anyways, the government has passed a law saying this is the way it is. I mean, why are we even discussing it? I mean, all we're going to do is rubber stamp whatever the hell they passed in the legislature. I mean, I'm so fed up with the NDP government. I just anyway.
Yeah.
I've unloaded, so I can sit back and not say anything.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
There's Lori. Hi, Lori. Can we hear you? Or you're on mute. So am I guess, am I?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, sorry, it took me a bit to find my way in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Carla is trying to phone in. Do you know that?
Oh, no, I didn't know that, but
Yeah.
Tom is online here. He's on the phone line.
Yeah, I just got a message from Carla that her internet's down, so she's trying to phone in.
Okay.
She's just got to follow all those numbers. I mean, yeah, even phoning in was kind of there was number codes that had to be at least 8 or 10 numbers long, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Did you used to meet in person?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We used to, yeah.
And so what?
That was when Christ was a small boy, though. So you know.
So it wasn't that long ago. I think it was last year, actually.
So there is enough members here for quorum. Do you want to wait till 10 after 7 and see if Carla shows up, or do you want to get started, Dave?
Well, why don't we get started?
Okay.
I'm not in favor of long drawn out meetings. So why don't we call the meeting to order at 7 minutes after 7. And I'd like to acknowledge that we respect the Indigenous peoples whose territory, traditional territory and lands that we're meeting in today. And so the agenda, do you know how to put the agenda up, Laura?
Sorry, I don't have it. I can
Okay.
do that at the next meeting. I don't have it loaded to put it up.
Okay.
Do you have it? Do you have a paper copy that you can go off?
Well, I have it on my in my inbox. That's all I've got. But I do have some things written down here. So the first thing is to adopt the agenda, and what we've got on there. I don't know if you guys could see what's on the agenda there or not, but it's just acknowledging the receipt of the minutes. It's staff reports and zoning changes, and then there's a section for public time, and then we set the next. The time for the next meeting, and then adjourn after that. So if we're all in favor of that as the agenda, then I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda as circulated. Do I have a second?
Mm-hmm.
Seconder, Lori? Okay, all in favor?
In
Sure, why
favor?
not? Yes.
I guess we can, yes, okay. Is that Carla on the other line there?
Yes, it is. My internet's out, so I called in.
Okay, Carla. Do you have a copy of the agenda?
On the internet I do, but I don't have any internet.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay, gotcha. Well, I just sort of outlined what it is. It's just a standard, adoption of the agenda, receipt of the minutes of the last meeting, staff reports regarding these zoning changes that are proposed by the province, and then some time for public comments. I think we have someone from the public that might want to be in on this. And then the next meeting, we have to set the next meeting time and then adjourn after that. So we have a motion to adopt the agenda, and Lori seconded it. All those in favor?
Yes. in
Lori
favor,
said,
Carla.
yeah, I'm in favor. Oh, Carla,
Yeah,
okay.
Carla.
So carried then. So a receipt of the minutes from the March 27th meeting. Did everybody get a copy of that in their inbox? Do we need to read those or anything, or do we just adopt them as circulated or whatever?
You can they just have to be received. I don't think they have to be, there doesn't have to be a
Vote- vote-
motion or anything.
Okay, great. Okay, so we just have to acknowledge that then. And so we're moving right along here, staff reports on the zoning changes proposed by the province. So maybe you could fill us in, Laura, on what that means.
Yeah, so the planner, Dana Hawkins, has been working on these proposed bylaw amendments to implement the provincial government legislation that came in the fall. And this is specifically the Bill 44 for that small scale multi-unit housing. So she just looked at it in terms of the regional district. And yeah, so all zoned areas are having their bylaws amended. So specifically, you'll just be looking at the Area G bylaw. And yeah, so it's just, you probably know the background. The government passed this legislation to increase housing and just to have some more flexible options for housing. And in the regional district, there already was, in most of the zones already permitted. If you're in a residential zone, you were permitted to have a secondary suite. So there were some changes that she is proposing. And I think like the most significant to me, answering people's questions like on a daily basis, what they call about. So people often ask about having an accessory dwelling on their property. And so in the residential zones, like I'll just give you kind of a summary of what I took from it. So in the residential zones on parcels that are a hectare or larger, you can now have the option of having an accessory dwelling, detached accessory dwelling. So you could choose to have a house with a suite, or you could have your house with a detached accessory dwelling if you're over 1 hectare in those residential zones. So that was one of the sort of the bigger changes. Other than that, a lot of it is just modernization of the language, like going from single family dwelling to single detached home. Yeah, so that was sort of the general difference that I saw.
Were there some issues around like areas that didn't have municipal sewer and water, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, it's different in the rural areas because they're not serviced. In some areas, there's water services. So
Yes,
the regulations that are applied in the municipalities are not the same in the regional district. So the minimum was you have to be able to offer that principal dwelling with an option of being able to have a suite. And so that's the minimum requirement that the government is mandating regional districts to offer. So, yeah, so really the big change is now if you're on a parcel that's a hectare or greater in, you know, some of those R1, R2 zones, you can apply to have an accessory dwelling as your second unit of housing, rather than just having the option of a suite in your house. So the density is the same, like the maximum density would still be 2 units. It's just how you want to meet that density if your lot is greater than a hectare. Yeah, anyways, that was kind of the only real difference that I have seen that might affect residents, or they may ask you about. So
I wondered about water, like out here, we're all on independent water systems here, and we're not even sure how much volume is available for any kind of, residential development, right? At this point, anyway. And,
yeah. Well, and that is the constraint in the rural areas is, is your well sufficient, and do you have space for a septic system? And Interior Health has best practices for installation of septic systems of 1 hectare on parcels that are not serviced, because you need that distance away from your well, and then, you need to have locations for replacement septic systems, looking at the longevity of the lot. So so it is limited in the rural areas by restrictions that the province has in place through Interior Health as well for septic. So yeah. Did any of you get a chance to go through that Area G?
I mean, I've got it up on my computer right now. It's on page 75, I think. If anybody's to do that, or 74. But to be honest, I haven't really had a moment to go through this.
Yeah,
yeah,
I was looking at it prior to the meeting, and yeah, I mean, I guess what stands out to me is this accessory dwelling unit. Some of those parcels in Area G might be interested. They might have been limited to only having that suite, and now they can have this accessory dwelling unit, and it's limited to 968 square feet. There are, it's a specific definition of that, or description of that accessory dwelling. Yeah, so some people might support that, having some flexibility in that, having that option for having a carriage house or a cottage suite or cottage house, but yeah.
right. I guess
This is Tom Nixon speaking. I'm an elderly curmudgeon and kind of cynical, but so this basically, the government thinks that we want in the rural areas for people to be able to build a second house on their 5-acre lot and rent it out to some family, and that's going to help solve the housing shortage. Is that the gist of what the government was thinking about, the NDP government down in Victoria, or is the case simply that they I can see, Vancouver or even Nelson or whatever, this making an impact, but did the NDP forget that BC is a largely rural area, and that we're not all cities, we're not all Vancouver, we're not all Lower Mainland? Well,
it has the potential to increase property values if somebody comes along and says, so it does have that impact.
Exactly. Is this going to help? Is this going to help lower the price of housing? I don't think so. In the rural areas, it's going to increase it, because people are going to be able to build a second house and on their, a rental unit or a house for their kids to live in, and suddenly their property is going to double in value. And instead of being able to sell it for $500,000, they'll be able to get, $850,000 for it. And is that going to help the shortage of housing? I don't think so. I just.
Yeah,
and,
well,
and can we reject this? Can we vote to tell the provincial government to get stuffed? I don't think so. It's passed and done, and why don't we just vote yes and support it, and all go home and have dinner time's gone.
yeah, I just want to, I know the cost of building now is through the roof, and most of the incomes of people that live in rural areas can't support high rents. And so if you're planning, like if you're a potential developer and you're investing in housing that you're going to rent out, it's going to cost you like a lot of dough to build. And then the rent is going to have to be so high that, it's going to be very difficult for people to actually afford it. So, there's that issue. And then the other issue that I see is water and sewer, infrastructure in some of the rural areas. So that's a big concern. And
who pays for the extra school buses when everybody moves into these secondary residential buildings on rural property, and they have kids, and suddenly we got to have 6 more buses packing kids into Nelson to go to school or into Salmo. I bet you the provincial government isn't going to give the school boards extra money for extra buses. I mean, I don't think they've thought this thing through. I think it's just a political move to placate whatever. The federal government is pushing this, and I mean, what's the point? What's the point in the rural areas of increasing densities? I mean, Jesus, there's a whole bunch of stuff comes from increasing density. I mean, we better think of that. Why don't they encourage? They discourage from building their own houses, for God's sakes. They pass all kinds of. Why don't they think of those regulations?
Well, I think what they're looking for from us, Tom, is some feedback on whether we think, if there's any big concerns that we have and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of what it is. It's sort of like direction, trying to give some feedback to the board about whether this is a good idea or if there are some concerns with it, that sort of thing. Carla, do you have any opinion on this?
Dave, they're not interested in our opinion.
Sorry, Tom, just a sec. I want to hear from Carla.
I do have some thoughts about this. I am very concerned about water in Weimar, just because of all the logging and our I don't know if increased density on the properties that are here. That's one question. And the other question I have is there ability to subdivide after? Because I know all the properties at the Wild Horse all have a minimum amount of property you are allowed to have up there. And so I'm wondering, would this change?
Yeah.
So can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
So really the density in most of the areas is not increasing. Like it's in those residential zones, you'll have that maximum density of 2 dwelling units. So it's right now in most of the zones, there's already that you're already permitted to have a house with a suite. So that's a density of 2 units of housing. So in those zones, you're just getting more options. In the areas where there's the bylaw, there's areas where instead of saying the minimum site area per each permitted use. So in some of the zones previously it said, a minimum lot size for each permitted use. So if you had 6 acres and the minimum lot size per use was 2 hectares, really, if you could service it, you could apply for 3 homes on that property. So the density is not necessarily increasing. Yeah. So I think what Dan had said to me was, we're already, the province has mandated that we do this. We're already in general meeting that requirement of the 2 units. It's challenging in the rural areas with servicing. So the changes aren't huge. And I think the province really, the intention is more for the municipalities to have, encourage triplexes and the townhomes in serviced areas. So I mean, just from what I've seen with the reading through the amendments, the changes are not that significant because the limits on servicing and yeah.
Right.
Um,
So then will there be ability to subdivide after is my question?
yeah, so you still would be able to apply to subdivide. They cleared up, it's confusing how the bylaws are written. It was saying the minimum site area for each permitted use. So that was how you would decide, oh, is your lot big enough to subdivide? It would be worded in that minimum site area. And now they're saying the minimum lot, or what is the wording? I think they're saying the minimum lot size for subdivision or something. Like it's just clarified the zoning bylaw. So it makes more sense because people would call and it would be confusing. Minimum site area, what does that mean? And now it says the minimum lot size for subdivision. And it's just a clarification in the language. Yeah, so subdivision, if your zoning allows a certain parcel size and you can meet that parcel size for the number of lots you want to create and you can meet the subdivision bylaw, you could apply to subdivide still.
Right. Thank you for that clarification.
So that would have, in effect, have the increase the density in that sense, but if there was a subdivision that occurred and then there was 2 houses available for each lot on a large parcel, say. Yeah.
Yeah,
but again, limited by the checks that are in there already around water and septic.
And the sizes haven't changed. It's just the wording of minimum site area versus you know what, I have to find the wording in the bylaw, but it's not changing the you know, it's not like you'll be able to create 4 lots when before you could only have your 1 lot. That's not changing.
Yeah, that was
just the
question that I was asking. Right, that's the question I was asking about the bylaw, because I know the bylaw is restrictive. Like for instance, up the Wildhorse in Weimar, the bylaw is restrictive. Like the lot size has to stay that size at least. And so that was mainly the question that I had. And then the other question is, even though there is like, I know you can have 2 suites right now, but it does seem like increased density on water. I don't know, but maybe it's not.
Well, if you're under a hectare, you could still only have, your option would still only be a house with a suite, or you could build it as a duplex. And if you're over a hectare, you could have a house with a suite. That would be one option, a duplex, or a single family house with an accessory dwelling on it. So like a house with a carriage house that's limited to 968 square feet. And that would be,
so people who already had that would be grandfathered in, is that correct?
that already had, like you're saying.
Yeah, that already had like a secondary structure or whatever, like that it doesn't change any, or already has another suite in it. It doesn't change anybody who already has that.
So if they're over the like if they're over the density, or what is?
No, if they're currently within compliance, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Dana. I mean, if they're not in compliance now, yeah, so if they had a house, 2 houses on the property and the change would not allow them to have, I don't know. That's a good planner question. I can ask the I can ask the planner and get back to you.
That would be a great question, because I know that there's a lot of lots that have that.
Yeah, I assume they're not going to go out and, you know, tell people they're non-conforming, because they probably were non-conforming before anyways. But no, I don't know, but I'll ask Dana.
Thank you.
And get back to you. I'll send you an email about that.
Do I understand this approach to all is nothing is changing at all. All we're doing is changing some wording and obvious. Right now, the bylaw is confusing, and this straightens that out to a great degree. But in essence, nothing is changing.
Well, except that now you could have like something outside of your existing home, right? Like a carriage home. Like it doesn't have to be just in your home. It can be separate.
Okay, that's the major change. Instead of allowing just a suite, you're actually allowed to build another dwelling of a maximum size of 900 square feet. No matter what we call it, whether we call it the carriage house or the back shed.
Yeah,
Is that
and
correct?
yeah, if they're over a hectare and in the residential zones.
Okay, I'd like to ask this further question. How many hours did it take the planning department in our regional district to go over this bylaw and change the wordings and do all that
Good
stuff to
question.
comply with this provincial mandate? Is there any reckoning of how much it cost us?
It's the point of
Do
order
this.
there, Tom.
Can we send a bill to the provincial government and the federal government for this extra work? Although it sounds really good, the positive part of it is that perhaps we can rewrite our bylaws so that they're understandable to most people, and there's no contradictions and stuff. It's a good chance to sort of go over the thing and bring it up to date.
Yeah, I think what's
Let
happened
somebody
is
else pay for it.
in some jurisdictions, right, they've had problems getting housing developments going because of restrictions, zoning restrictions or whatever. And so this is sort of a blanket thing to try and loosen up
But Dave,
those.
that's in cities. That's in places like Kelowna and Kamloops, and that's not even in Nelson.
Well, it could be like rural areas, adjacent to urban areas.
Well, yeah, adjacent to those places, but
Places like Weimar. Well, I have a question for you. Like we have 40 acres, so if we subdivide that into, I don't know how many hectares that is, but it's quite a bit. And we could subdivide it into like 4 or 5 lots and then have 2 houses on each lot.
I think you can do that right now, Dave. I don't think you have to. Well,
But would you be able to do that with the water that's available?
No, probably not. I wouldn't touch it, but it's a hypothetical question.
But I just mean, is there something in there that limits you from being able to do that? Something in there within the provincial act or whoever controls the water licenses?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, unless you have wells, like our creek out here is already oversubscribed. So they're not issuing any more licenses for that. So it would have to be a well, assuming, and the water table is dropping because Living Lakes has got a monitor on our water table to track what's happening with the water table. And it's gone down the last year. So, that's always a concern, right?
I just wanted to say, Tom, that I believe Dana was saying the other day, I believe the provincial government is providing funds, a certain amount of money to the regional districts to implement the changes. So I think there was a transfer of money, and I'm not sure how much. She just sort of mentioned it in passing that. So I think the provincial government has allocated money to the regional districts to implement these.
good. Well, good. Send them a really inflated bill, okay? Make sure that we get the money and more than the money from all this stuff. Like I say, I'm cynical. This has nothing to do with anything except politics. That's all it's about. So they can say they're working on housing.
So I'm just wondering if we need. Sorry. Go ahead, Carla.
I'm just curious because of all the properties that are on the highway between Weimar and Selmo, especially on the I don't even know what side that is. Hang on a second. West side. There's a whole bunch of properties that are selling currently, and they're right by the watershed, obviously, and they are over a hectare. And I'm just worried about density there, but I don't think that just affects it in any way. They could probably have already done what they need to do there, just with all the logging that's happening there. Anyway, I don't think it's more of just like flagging a concern to somebody about water in time. That's all.
Yeah. So Laura, do we need to put anything in writing to the regional board? Or are we gonna just, are you gonna summarize kind of what we've discussed here, or how does that work?
Well, the minutes go to the board and they also go to Dana. She'll look at all of the comments from the APHCs. So I was just gonna note your concerns with water, and it sounds like, well, you can make a motion to, well, you can, I'm not sure if you'd want to further discuss this or,
I just
yeah,
want to make a note that the water in this in this area, well, all of BC, because we're going into a drought, but specifically in like rural spaces, like, and also I'm sure with people with wells too, like water is a big concern and just in terms of density, but
Mhm.
everyone knows that, but it would be good to put it in the record too.
Yeah,
okay, and I'll make a note of that, and I mean, really, you can vote to support it or not support the changes. I feel like, it might be good to like have a read of them, and, or just if you have more questions, I can pass them on to the planner and then get back to you with an email.
Mhm.
But I mean, for the sake of these meetings, it's sort of voting on whether you support or not support it, or what are your issues with it. But I think really in general, it's Dana looking at your comments and seeing what your concerns are, and then Director Cunningham also looking at the minutes as well and seeing where your support lies and what your concerns are. So it's just kind of like me capturing the general discussion and the main concerns that you might have with the changes.
Mhm.
And I know it's hard because it's such a intimidating document, and I feel like really if you need to sit down and compare the current bylaw with the
Yeah.
changes, like it really, yeah. And you could also, if you want to request to have the planner do some sort of Zoom or WebEx meeting that
Yeah,
where she can talk more about them in more detail. She's more the expert, so.
yeah. I kind of figured she might be here tonight to let us know, kind of what the scoop is on that. I don't feel like I'm well enough educated really to comment other than to issue, some of the concerns we have. One is density, because, more people, more fires and more demands on water, and lack of transportation infrastructure that Tom pointed out, so, there's some things, but there is a place in the email that we got that allows for comments, is looking for feedback. So I suppose as individuals, we could comment on it.
Yeah, definitely. And you can email Dana and let her know your individual comments. And I think Sadie mentioned that last night to the Area C APHC. Take a look if you want to just take some time and look at it, or just email her with your comments if you feel more comfortable doing that.
Okay.
Than voting
Yeah,
on supporting or
because
not supporting it.
I like that idea of individual comments, because then, Tom can kind of, do his thing, and we'll each do our individual things, and then they can just roll that stuff up and, decide whether to present it to the board or take it under advisement or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Okay, well, let,
I would support this whole business as a way of getting the provincial government to pay our staff to upgrade and update our bylaw that we're talking about without any changing of it. I don't want to. It's fine the way it is, but if we can clean up the wording and make it more what's the word, understandable by the ordinary person instead of lawyers, well then I'm all for that, and get the provincial government to pay for it. So I would support this.
All right.
I mean, from what I can see, a lot of it is just clarifying and modernizing. And then putting that description of the accessory dwelling and yeah, adding a bit more flexibility to those residential larger lots. But I think it's, I mean, it's hard for me to say because I'm not the planner and I'm just,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know the details of it, but from what I can see and compared to what I have dealt with the old bylaw, it is more clear and it provides a bit more flexibility. But whether or not you support people having an accessory dwelling unit on their property if they're in a residential zone, I mean,
Mhm.
some people
Well,
may not
You know,
support.
some people have like mother-in-law suites and stuff like that, right? Because as their parents age, you know, they want a place for grandma to live while, you know, while they're in and look after them or whatever, you know, that sort of thing. So I could see some benefits to that for sure. So, okay, well, why don't we just leave it at that? And we can each comment on it. And like, I'm in support of it. I mean, I don't really have a problem with it if it's just clarifying the terminology to allow, you know, to make it easier for people to understand about what's doable and what isn't. I just don't know if I have quite enough information to you know, talk about the details of it. Like, you know, but that comes out, I guess, later when we get requests for, you know, development proposals and stuff like that. So at that point in time, we will probably learn more about what's in the changes. So, okay, so let's move on here. So do you guys want to, do you want to say anything to the board about this in the minutes?
I would just like the recording of like the water concern of what you said before, just like taking that concern back. But I think that giving their own, like, we can all give our own feedback as private citizens too, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and I've made a note of that. I'll make sure that's in the minutes, just the concern
Thank
for
you.
the water resources and the
Okay.
watershed. And just the
Yeah.
pressure
you.
on infrastructure in general.
Thank
Right.
you.
Okay, that sounds good. And then we can just send in our own comments as well. As we learn more and go through all that material, maybe there'll be some things that come out, you know, that stand out and we want to comment on or whatever, so. Okay, well, do we want to have a motion then to make sure, I guess, that the discussion that we had tonight, the concerns that have been raised, are entered into the minutes, you know, and forwarded on to the board for their consideration.
Yeah.
Does
Okay,
somebody
I've
want to move that? Lori? You have a seconder?
Sure thing, yeah.
Yeah, I'll second or whatever
Okay,
you need.
okay, all in favor? Okay. You guys good on the phone?
Yeah,
Okay, carried.
okay, I have that noted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving right along here, public time. We have somebody watching this performance? Who, are you anonymous or do you have are you gonna tell us who you are? Okay, hey, no problem. Did you have anything that you wanted to add? Right, yeah, gotcha. Okay, thank you. Thanks for joining us. All right, okay, so the next meeting time, when would that be? That'll be May the
29th,
29th? At 7?
Yeah, online for Tom.
Online for Tom, yeah. But maybe we can get some help to Tom, get him set up with his technology or something, I don't know, and Carla will too, I mean.
The phone
It's
works.
like, it's like,
The phone works perfectly, you know. The old technology that we call telephones works fine. I have no.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good to hear then. And Carla, is everything okay with you?
yeah, it's just our internet. You know, Weimar internet. It's one of those things.
Right. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so, motion to adjourn. So moved. Lori? we have
Here,
to give you a
here.
second.
Yeah.
All in favor? Okay, thanks
Yes.
for everything, Laura.
Thank you.
Thanks for,
Yeah, thanks for
Thanks,
being
everyone.
here.
okay, we'll see you next month then.
Next time. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet.